my name's Laurel Kelly. I'm a 10th grade English teacher at the Sizer School in Pittsburgh, Mass. I wanted to make this video to share some resources that I, as a white woman, have found helpful in helping me have a deeper understanding of what is happening in the world right now. I've always, had empathy for people, but building that schema to understand history and how things have progressed to this point helps me understand why things are happening the way that they are. So I wanted to share some resources that I've found, speaking specifically about books and movies and podcasts. But I just wanted to share some of these. So I wanted to share some things that I found that have helped me to move forward in anti-racist education. And as a white woman, what things can I hand down to other people to help them build that understanding? So the essential question that I have is, what texts can I use to build an understanding of the current climate and the role of anti-racism? Using media to build your schema on racism in the US and how it has moved to this point. So first we're going to talk about fiction books, because I feel as if that's a very good entrance point, because it's engaging, but it's also very internal in your understanding of it, but you can also have very deep and important conversations about it. So to start, Angie Thomas, The Hate You Give and On the Come Up. Those are her two books that are out right now. She has a third coming out next year called Concrete Rose. So The Hate You Give is about a young woman who lives in two different worlds. She exists in two different worlds. So she lives in her Black community, but she also attends a private school that is mostly white, and we find the character code switching a lot between the two. Also, she experiences seeing one of her good friends be shot at the hands of a police officer during a routine traffic stop. So it brings to light a lot of different things, and it's so incredibly relevant. On the Come Up, also by Angie Thomas, is about a young Black girl, Bree, who wants to help support her family through using her art. So she's a rapper and she wants to get into that, but also she's experiencing a significant amount of racism at school as well. And then her third book that's coming out in January is in the same world as The Hate You Give. It is about Star's father, Maverick, and his experiences as a young man. So the next book I want to talk about is All American Boys by Jason Reynolds and Brendan Kiely. I have not read this yet, but it is on my to-be read list, and I have read about it extensively, but I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet. It's about two young boys, one Black, one white, and their differing experiences. I also included a couple of graphic novels on this list. One is Monster by Walter Dean Myers. It's also available as a novel as opposed to a graphic novel. It tells the experience of Steve, a young man awaiting trial for a murder and a robbery. So it's kind of an understanding of how young Black people experience justice in this country. And then also I Am Alfonso Jones by Tony Medina, which is about a young Black boy, who is shot by an off-duty police officer while he's shopping for his first suit because the police officer mistakes a clothes hanger for a gun and shoots him through a window. Heart-wrenching. I read it in one afternoon and I sobbed in my living room while I was reading it. Next up is Nick Stone's books, Dear Martin and Dear Justice. Dear Justice is coming out later this year in September. Dear Martin is about a Black boy who is dealing with today's society, but also mirroring it through the lens of Martin Luther King Jr. and how those two stories are similar and how they're different. I have a couple of short story compilations here as well. I have Fresh Ink, which is not specifically about Black experiences, but it does include some Black experiences. It's by many different young adult authors on many different perspectives, including ethnicities and races, disabled characters, characters from the LGBTQ plus spectrum, and the intersectionality of those things. Black Enough is another collection of short stories edited by Ibi Zoboi, who also wrote American Street, which is excellent. So this is also a collection of stories by popular YA authors and looking at the intersectionality, again, of Black experiences. Nonfiction books. First up, I have Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. It is actually the young adult version of Stamped from the beginning. They both look at the historical context of racism in the US and around the world and how it has led up to this point, and then what we can do to counteract that. I have a couple of essay compilations here as well. I have American Like Me, which is Reflections on Life Between Cultures, which is edited by America Ferrera. So that is a collection of essays written by authors, actors, policymakers, activists, and many others who are seen as outside of American society at times. So some of them are people who emigrated to this country. Some of them are people who are first and second generation in their family to live in this country, and how that duality of experiences affected them. The next one is Hope Nation, which I also have not read yet, but it is on my way through the mail, so hopefully it arrives soon. So that's a book with essays by popular YA authors and times that they felt inspired. Movies and documentaries. The first one I have is 13th, which is available on Netflix. It's about the 13th Amendment and how it greatly affected the climate and culture in the United States around race and racism. The next is Just Mercy, which is currently available for free on Amazon Prime, on YouTube, on Vudu, on Apple TV, through Redbox streaming, and it's about a Black man who becomes a lawyer and starts defending people who are on death row. The next is The Hate You Give, again, because it's wonderful. So we already talked pretty extensively about it. And the movie and the book, of course, are not exactly the same, but they are very similar. They tell similar stories, but each one has its own special moments that don't necessarily exist in the same way in the other medium. And then Selma, which is available free through FX or through paid rentals such as Amazon. I also suggest checking your local library. Many libraries right now at this point in the pandemic are starting to do curbside pickup. So check with them. This helps to contextualize historically as well racism and the experiences of Black people, as well as giving us a more realistic view of Martin Luther King Jr., who, through the white lens in the United States, we have very much whitewashed and sanitized. He was not someone that, was revered in his lifetime by the government and by policymakers. No, he was arrested nearly 30 times. He was seen as someone who was pushing boundaries. And yes, it was typically through nonviolence, but he also understood the role of violence and riots, as they're currently referring to them, in protest and the necessity of it. Last up, we have some podcasts. Code Switch by NPR is talking about current events and the effect that they have on the Black community. So a lot of what they're discussing at this point is obviously the protests and the experience and the trauma that the Black community is experiencing at this point, as well as the way that COVID is impacting the Black community. 1619 is another one that helps historically contextualize the discussion about racism. 1619 is the year that the first ship of enslaved people arrived from Africa. So it helps to give some more background schema understanding. And the last one is The Stoop. It deals with the experiences of mainly Black women in the United States and how current culture is affecting them. So, of course, this is not an exhaustive or complete list. This is just a starting point, especially for teens who can easily engage with many of these texts. If you have any suggestions, please include them below in the comments. I really look forward to expanding my to be read list. It just grows and grows by the day, but that's okay because there aren't many other places to go during a pandemic. So please continue to suggest for myself, for my students. I greatly appreciate it. If you are going to purchase any of these books, please try to do so from small independent retailers, especially if you have a small independent Black bookstore that you're able to purchase from, as opposed to buying from a large conglomerate. So let's help to support communities as much as possible. Thank you so much. And let me know which of these books or texts or movies or podcasts did you find most engaging? Thank you.